Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So in this series we follow opening principles, middle game strategies and the endgame strategies. Today we talk about some endgames again. Today we talk about this opposite colored bishops endgames. But before we talk about this opposite colored bishops endgames, I wanted to tell you something, that this is now my 100th Basics in Chess video. So I have created 100 videos including this about the basics in chess, about openings, how I should play openings, not openings explained, like explaining the Nimzo Indian or the King's Indian. It's really just explaining the ground rules of openings, and I've showed you also some middle game strategies, some middle game plannings, how you should play against, I don't know, backward pawns and similar ideas. And I showed you also this endgame strategies, how you should play maybe rook and pawn endgames and similar ideas. So this is really the most important series on my channel, although it's not the most popular, but I'm gonna continue to make this series. I think this is a very important thing for me, because I started this series to have a good preparation for my son when I wanted to prepare him for playing chess. So I wanted to have it all covered, so that I don't have to search the things in books and maybe buy some DVDs. So this series is really for you guys also. It's really for free. You don't have to buy DVDs, you don't have to buy books. Everything that I'm showing you here in the series is for free, and I'm going to continue to make the series. I'm expecting, like, in this series we will have at least 150 videos, because I know the next subjects in my head, so I don't have to search even more for subjects. I have it prepared everything for you guys, so we'll continue to follow the series even longer. So as said, no paid memberships, no DVDs. It's just chess for free, and we're going to continue this very nice series. So today, as said, we have this opposite colored bishops endgames. So while playing these endgames, you should follow the ground rules of opposite colored bishops endgames. First of all, you should have an active king. This works for every endgame strategy. You should play very actively with your own king. Try to get it more centralized, because in the center the king has the best power. Trading of pawns is very risky, because if you go into an opposite colored bishop endgame by trading pawns too much, maybe we're going into a 2 versus 1 pawn endgame, and this should be a draw. So we are not trying to make a draw, we are trying to make a win here. So pawn mobility is also very important. Maybe it's the most important thing in bishop versus pawn endgames, because when we're playing some endgames, you see we have a position in which white has 2 extra pawns, but white hasn't secured a pawn mobility, so this is probably a draw, even with 2 pawns up. So you see, this opposite colored bishop endgame is always dangerous, because it most often leads into a draw. So in order to prevent such a scenario, you should really first secure the pawn mobility. The other important thing is to create this distant pass pawns, or this connected pass pawns, because then when we created pass pawns, then your opponent is stretched. Maybe he cannot participate with the bishop, with the king in the defense. He cannot make defensive moves on both sides, and that's the problem. So you see, I've prepared here this example. Here are 2 distant pass pawns. You see, maybe white has sacrificed his light square bishop in opposite colored bishop endgame, but now he can simply try to put after potential king on e4, we can simply here push the pawn on g7. After the bishop takes, here we can promote here on b8, because the bishop cannot cover, of course, both of the sides. The other thing is also very important, that you should create these 2 connected pass pawns. These 2 connected pass pawns, you see, we're pawn up in an opposite colored bishop's endgame, but this is winning for white, because now these 2 connected pass pawns are working perfectly fine, and the bishop will have to be sacrificed here by black in order to prevent white from promotion. So let's see now a couple of examples. The first instructive game that I wanted to show you, it was played by John Thomas against Savielly Tartakower, and here you see, first white tried to secure this pawn mobility. As I said, the pawn mobility is very important. If black manages to create maybe a fortress or similar ideas with bishop on d3 and then bishop on b5, this will be very dangerous. And if he maybe even plays with the king on f5, if he creates a blockade, it's game over. It's not game over, it's draw, but with the pawn up you have to win this endgame. So here king on e3 played by white. You see king centralization, king activity, one of the principles. So king on d7 and now rook on g1, securing, as I said, the pawn mobility. Playing this move g4 is now very important to prepare here. Rook on b8, g4, we have h takes g4, h takes g4, and now bishop on e6, and now very tricky move f5. If you take g takes f5, after g takes f5, you see if bishop takes on f5, then rook on g7 is very dangerous. If you try even rook on e6, then you have rook on e7 checkmate. So very tricky stuff that white has prepared here. So after f5, black went simply c5. What black is trying to do here is secure his activity, sort of. He wants, after bishop on c5, go much more active with his rook into the game. So that's why white took the pawn with the pawn here, d takes c5, and now we have g takes f5, we have g takes f5, bishop takes on f5, rook on g7. Now this checkmate doesn't work because the bishop is blocked out by its own pawn. King on e6, and now king on d4. Again, the king centralization move. As I said, these are the most important principles in this endgame. So rook on h8, we have c6, again creating a pawn mobility, and the most important thing is that we can now participate with the king. King on c5, king on b6 is of course now white's main idea. Rook on h4, check. Here king on c6, again a check, but not a problem. We can simply go forward. d4 was played. We have c7, and now you see black is trying to cover this c8 square with the bishop. But now rook on g8, simple idea, not a problem. We have d3, rook on d8, first a check, and now bishop on c5, king on e4, and now promotion here. And after king on f3, we have rook on d8, and this is now completely winning for white. We can play now bishop on b4, and then wait black to do his d2 move and capture the pawn with the rook and the pawn. In the next moves, of course, we are going with the king on a5, and we can also take this pawn on a4. So let's see now another example. Again, we have a very specific endgame, and here the black is on the winning side. Again, you see this is really static position. It's really hard to find now the best moves, but as said, we want to create first of all the pawn mobility. In the game, black tried the move a4, connecting of course these two pawns. This is very important, and now we have bishop king on b4. We have bishop on f1, and if you take of course the pawn here, then we can take this one and secure here this b3 pawn and try to connect these two pawns, and after that also attacking this weakness, go with our king here through light squares and attack maybe even this h2 pawn. In the continuation, of course, we would try here maybe also to create a pass pawn on the queen side. So here in the continuation, f4 was played, and now very tricky move, bishop on b5. You see, creating this pawn mobility. If white takes this bishop, then here a3 is very dangerous, and you cannot prevent anymore this pawn from promotion. We can simply just play forward. If you take, then again we are playing simply promotion on b1. So here h4 was played, bishop on c6. You see now white has troubles now. Black has secured now his pawn on a4. He has a very powerful diagonal with his bishop, and basically what we want to do is play much more actively with our king. Here bishop on d8 was played, and now king on g4. Very important. Bishop on f6, and now we have king on g3, and this is now the position in which we can really secure a pass pawn. You see with this moves, black has secured pass pawn here on the g file. In the continuation, king on c3, you see we have we have h6, king on b4, and now king on g4, we have e4, and now we can simply push forward because g4 is now the best move, and we can simply push this pawn forward. White is stuck to the defense of this potential a3 move because, as I said, we can create a distant pass pawn. So if let's see the possible continuation after h takes g5, we have h takes g5, and if you try to push, we can simply go forward. If bishop on g7, then we simply just push forward, and here again we can go with our king and go to promotion. As I said, the king cannot participate here. If the king moves, we can always try this a3 move, and then after that a2. Of course, it has to be prepared, but here white is too stretched here on both sides, and that's why it's completely winning for black here. So here is again a position, very tricky stuff. You see, it's a game played by Max Juve here with the white pieces, and here white realizes that he can create this distant pass pawn. In the game, Max Juve played bishop on b5, attacking the knight. Here rook on c8 was played, bishop takes, rook takes on c6, b takes on c6, but now bishop takes on a7, and now white has secured this distant pass pawn situation. As I said, this is very important. In the game, king on f7, you see we're pushing forward, a4, bishop on b3, again pushing forward, a5, bishop on c2, and here a very tricky move played by white, bishop on c5. This is what I meant, restricting your opponent's bishop's activity. So you see, if of course takes, then you cannot catch up with this pawn because your bishop is blocked out by this c6 pawn. So you see tricky stuff prepared here by Max Juve. After bishop on c5, we have bishop on d3, bishop takes, we have bishop takes on e4, but now simply a6 pushing forward. So now black is forced to play this move c5. We have bishop on c5, and now we have accomplished this two connected pass pawn situation, as I said, and this should be winning. So here h5 was played. Now finally playing with our king on f2, bishop on d3, we're pushing forward, a7, bishop on e4, and now g3. Max Juve simply played much more actively with the king now. Here king on g5, king on f7, and now bishop on d4, bishop on g2, now h4, we have bishop on h1, and now simply pushing forward. Here b4, we have bishop on g2, b5, bishop on h1, simply bishop on f6, bishop on g2, h5, very important. Here after g takes h5, king on f5, and in this position black resigned, because the more important thing is that black cannot participate here in the attack with potential king on d8 move. So white kings is restricted here, and now what pardon me, black is restricted. Of course, white can simply go and continue with this king, and then after that push these pawns and have a promotion of the queen. So on the other hand, this distant pass pawn is not a problem because this bishop has it covered. So it's of course again a completely winning endgame here for white. So let's see now another game. Here again an opposite colored bishop's endgame, but with some rooks, with some queens on the board. And again, as I said, the most important thing is to create a certain pawn mobility. So if the position gets too static, it's basically a draw. So here in the game, black tried here, of course, a4, opening the position on the a file. We have rook on c8, rook takes on c8, now b takes a4, now queen on e8, attacking the pawn. We have rook on d2, queen takes, and now queen on h4. We simply push forward here, rook on c8. We are trying to get rid of this rook because the rook is the defender of this a2. If we manage to capture this pawn on a2, then we have again a pass pawn, and it should be winning. So rook takes on c2, queen takes on c2. Now we have even some checkmate threats on g2. Here queen on g3, and now queen takes on a2. This is now the position that we have accomplished. We have now pass pawn, and here bishop takes on g2 was played, of course, with the immediate checkmate threat. But now queen takes on g2, queen takes, bishop takes, king takes, of course it cannot take, because then after trades of pieces here on f6, then we have a distant pass pawn and it's game over. So that's why white tried to stay with the bishops on the board going into this opposite color bishops endgame, but now simply after king on g3 we have king on f7, again playing much more actively with our king. h4 we have g6, and now king on f2, king on e6. You see we're playing only with our king. We have bishop on f6, king on g3, we have bishop on e7, king on h3. This is now a very important move. If you take, then again we have this created this distant pass pawn. As I said, this is the most important thing, to create some kind of an activity with our pawns here. That's why bishop on f6, king on g4, we have bishop on e7, bishop on f5, playing sort of tempo moves here. King on f3, we have bishop on e7, and now simply pushing forward. Now it's the real threat is of course to play b3 and then b2, and then after that b1. King on c3, we have bishop on e6. This is now tricky stuff. If you take, then of course we can simply push forward with the check, and then take this pawn, and after that this pawn, and this would be again game over. So here bishop on c5 was played, but now you see very nice move played by white, simply pushing forward. F takes g5, you see, but now very tricky d4. Here if white took, of course, but now we can create again this distant pass pawn that I've created, that I talked about here in the after bishop and a3 we can simply take. Now you see this we can take this pawn, and now we have created this position that I wanted to show you. So this is now the position in which we have two of these distant pass pawns. You see now white cannot cover both of these pawns, and that's why it's completely winning here for black. So in the continuation, king on e4, simply pushing forward. You see after bishop on d5 here white resigned, because you can do maybe this, but then again we can participate with our king going on the other side, simply push forward and then protect our pawn here, and again this is game over. Okay, let's see now another example. Here we have an endgame. Again, black is a pawn up, and in order to make this make a win here, again we should secure this pawn mobility. In the game, of course, king on c5, preparing of course b5. So this is the most important thing, creating this mobility and an active king. So g6, we have king on b4, we have bishop on f7, and now of course b5. A takes b, we have c takes b5, king on f3, and now of course a4, we have b takes a4, b takes a4, and now you see we have very tricky stuff here, h4, but not a problem here. Black simply played actively with the king, because you should also consider this wrong bishop situation. If we have this position in which you have a pass pawn here, but it covers only the light square. Here you can promote on the light square, and if you have a dark square bishop, this should be also theoretical draw. So that's why black didn't go for this, and he played simply much more actively with the king. We have king on g4, we have bishop on f4, we have now h5. White is trying also to create a distant pass pawn for himself by taking this h6 pawn. Here we have simply pushing forward a3, king on f5, and now a2, b2, pardon me. We have king on g6, and now very tricky stuff. This is now the monster move, bishop on e3. Here white took. We have now of course g4 with the check. That's why white had to take, but now we have created this position. As I said, this is the most important thing. We having pawns now on both sides, and white cannot cover both of them. Here you see we can simply promote the queen, and this was then a completely winning endgame, because after queen on f7, you see we have a forced checkmate here. So here is an endgame for yourself to solve at home by applying these basic principles. So keep in mind what are the most important things. So here creating distant pass pawns or creating two pass pawns, two connected pass pawns, and similar ideas. So try it out, try to find the best move, try to find the best idea here in order to win this endgame. I think it's a very instructive endgame here. By applying these principles that I've told you, I think you should solve this puzzle very easily. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Meanwhile, you can watch my other basics in chess videos. As I said, we have 100 videos so far in the series. I think you can learn something from it. And you can also watch my other series, chess tactics and chess puzzles, in which I show you all of the possible tactical motifs that can happen in a chess game. And you can also watch my series, how to spot chess tactics, in which I show you some common positions in which tactical possibilities are there. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.